VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. We have the 2024 NFL Draft is now complete. The Vikings have 7 new players. I haven't even tabulated the number of undrafted free agents, but there's a bunch. There's probably going to be some gems. Last year, let's see, Najee Thompson came out of the group. Of course, Ivan Pace. And there was
Andre
one other.
Carter.
Andre Carter, and I think was there one more who got to the act? Jalen Williams got to stay on the team. So usually in years past, before last year, I always taper people's expectations with UDFAs, but this group might be onto something. So I will not say anything blasphemous about UDFAs. We're going to go through all of that tonight. We have Eric Horstman back from, Iowa, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yes. And last time we went through all this pre-draft stuff. Now we are just hours after the draft, so we have to decompress it. I want to get takes from everybody about the event. Brevin, I'm going to give it to you to start with Eric.
Cool. And it's such a it's a sad but happy thing that the draft is over, because it's the best time of year. But this is my first time being a content creator and writer for the draft time, and it's exhausting, but I want to do it all again. So I don't know. I feel like there was a lot to like with this draft. Everybody for the most part seems happy, but what's a few things that Eric, can point out to be your favorite things from this draft?
Yeah. I'll go with the obvious. Obviously getting our quarterback, hopefully for the next 10, 12, 15 years would be great. So that was probably my number one, kind of with Dustin. Drake May was my preference. Thought we were gonna get that done, but is what it is. So I think McCarthy is a lot better than kind of your typical consolation prize, if you want to call it that. So still really happy about that. Obviously getting Dallas Turner's pretty huge too. I was fully expecting to not have that second first round pick. So yeah, the first round to me was definitely an A. Probably couldn't have done, asked for anything better given the situation. I like getting the corner from Oregon in the fourth. I it's kind of a name that I was hoping would be there at that point. I don't know a whole lot about him, but just saw other people kind of talking about him. So dug in a little bit there. So was happy with that. And then I don't know that I really loved the rest of it. But again, 6th and 7th round picks, what the hell?
Yeah,
it's probably not going to matter. I'm more excited about the undrafted guys at this point with Kwesi and his staff than our actual late round draft picks. So
for sure.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of my overall thoughts on it so far. Yeah, I'm pretty happy. Again, the late round picks is kind of just nitpicking, I would say.
Yeah,
otherwise,
for sure.
yeah, I'm stoked. I'm ready for training camp, all that good stuff, and so this is going to be quite the long waiting period here, which kind of always sucks. So
it definitely does. And I get, you mentioned you didn't know a whole ton about Kyrie Jackson out of Oregon, the 4th round pick. Luckily for you, there may or may not be an article going up about him on purpleptsd.com tomorrow.
Right.
So maybe you can learn about him a little bit. I wanted to get your take. Because one of my favorite things about this draft is the kicker selection in the 6th round. Will Reichard? I don't know.
Yeah.
Either one. But I think he put up the most points in college football history of anybody that's played. And I guess of course he's kicking, so it's kind of a common, not putting up the most ever, but having a lot.
Yeah.
I like it not just because you're potentially solving the kicker problem, and we're spiting John Parker Roma for not replying to my DM to come on VikesNow. I like it, and again, I want your thoughts on this, and call me crazy. If this guy isn't good, this franchise will never have a good kicker, and I tweeted that before the show. So do you think I'm crazy in that? What's your thoughts on that?
No, you're spot on. If he sucks, we're cursed. We don't even need a kicker. Screw it. At this point, go for 2 every time. Let whoever the punter is do kickoffs. I don't care. Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I don't know what it is, but if there's any there's any franchise that can ruin a really good kicker, it's us. Like, let's hope it doesn't happen. I mean, I'm hopeful that he's going to work out, kind of keep obviously that momentum going from Alabama. Fingers crossed, and we'll see what happens. But no, you're not crazy at all.
That poor bastard does not know what he's getting himself into.
He has no idea. He saw that 612 or whatever area code. And he's, son of a bitch. I'm gonna just ignore this call. Somebody else, please.
What I don't. So increasingly in the NFL, in the analytics era, it's taboo to draft a kicker. It's like you're not supposed to waste a pick on it, which I get it because they don't really do much like a position player could. But then when I saw the Vikings do it and I tried to think, all right, what's the rationale? I asked myself, how do you get the best kicker if you don't draft him? You just have to hope that when you make the UDFA calls that he wants to be part of your team. So I think I agree with the math of not drafting a kicker. But if you want a really good one, which this team deserves to have, first one since Ryan Longwell, that would be damn good. And they never have their own homegrown one. It's always, if it's going to be a guy who's any good, it's a free agent or like Longwell. So that's where I landed on kicker. And of course, I'm excited. But there has to be a guy that can end the doldrums of kicking. I mean, because it's been going on since 1998 is really when it got put on everybody's radar. And it's never really diminished since. On Drake May, for 3 very vocal Drake May guys, I'm paranoid that because he went to the Patriots that they're going to suck because they don't have a whole lot of weapons and we're going to look stupid. And, that's what I'm selfishly paranoid that he's not going to reach his pinnacle because he's not in a good situation. I guess I hope I'm wrong because I still consider myself a Drake May guy. He seems like a lovable dude and he has all the tools. And then I had one other thing, thinking about the 23rd pick. It was so weird for me that when McCarthy was taken at 10 and we kept the 23rd pick, I have spent so many months conceding that pick was a goner that when they got to that spot on the board, I started to think, well, shit, who are they going to get? Like, and I hadn't even really put any thought into it. So it got down to Dallas. I was telling my wife, Dallas Turner, a guy named Quinion Mitchell, maybe Byron Murphy, if he's still there. That's what we were talking about right after the McCarthy pick. But it was such brave new world because I hadn't even remotely entertained that they'd be able to pick at that spot because no matter what, they had to trade up to at least number 5 to get McCarthy. And that turned out to be false. It was really, we have to learn this lesson learned that in the final 3 days before the draft, the credible draft community, like the mock draft, they start to come back to earth because on Tuesday and Wednesday and then Thursday morning, all of the smarty pantses that have the high accuracy scores, they had McCarthy sliding and falling from 8 to 9 to 10 all the way to 11. And I thought, what were we doing this whole time? Like, who realized that all of a sudden this is coming back down to earth? So remember that maybe the smoke screen starts to diminish right before the start of the draft. There were a lot of sweet things to enjoy. I, too, am intrigued by the Kyrie Jackson because he's instantly the tallest cornerback. And when you're playing Cortland Sutton on the road or you're playing T. Higgins in a really pivotal December game, you want somebody that can, jump with these gentlemen. And if he's any good, Kyrie Jackson could do that because he's nearly 6'4". Let's go to, Eric, some of the stuff that you touched on a little bit, but if you want to expand on the last talker or morph into more, for example, I wish they would have got a running back. They were like, nope, we're good. They got plenty of them on the roster. But that's one of the things that I wish they had done differently. What is something that you thought was to be desired about this Vikings draft?
Yeah, so I'm pretty disappointed they didn't prioritize interior defensive or offensive line. I mean, I get it. The 2 7th-round picks, maybe they'll work out, but I kind of doubt it.
Probably not.
Obviously they're way smarter than me. Like, I get that, right? And it's like all the talk about Christian Wilkins and some of the other guys that they were really trying to bring in free agency. It seemed like a priority. They knew, like, okay, yeah, we've got to get a heck of a lot better than what we were last year. And so it's like, okay, that gave me, some confidence that they're going to do that. They're going to make, something happen. And then I'm thinking, okay, yeah, they love Byron Murphy. And then, of course, he goes. I thought the trade up at 17 was going to be for Johnny Newton. Yeah, 100%. Not that I'm mad about Dallas Turner.
That'd piss me off.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably good that they went the direction they did again.
Yes.
I don't know a whole lot, but yeah, I really thought defensive tackle was going to be the, kind of the route they went. And yeah, so that's kind of the disappointing thing for me. It would probably be that they just didn't really address it, in my opinion. Only getting one, and it's a 7th rounder. I think there's probably a couple in the undrafted guys that they do or that they have signed so far. But again, you can hope for the next Ivan Pace all you want. Probably not gonna happen every year. So we'll see. But yeah, that was my biggest disappointment, I would say. And then I guess guard too. I think we can probably write in pen that Blake Brandel is going to be at left guard. I think that's kind of solidified now. Maybe I'm wrong, but sure seems like it, especially with them not addressing that. So that's probably a little bit further down my list, but those two, I was like, man, I was really hoping that, kind of beef that up a little bit. But
well, at defensive tackle, the options now are hoping for a Jerry Tillery about face, like thinking, all right, he's all of a sudden good. Jonah Williams, the same type of deal. A Jaquelin Roy breakout. Those are the in-house options, which none of them sound realistic. And then there's the Calais Campbell option. If you try to convince that elderly football player that, hey, we're going to go 7-10, but we want you to be a part of it. That's the other option. But once we saw that run on day 2, like just sickening run of defensive tackles, like it was like Tavondre Sweat, his DUI helped him. Like that raised his draft stock. It was like, all right, well, they want a guy who's got a little checkered past because he wasn't supposed to go that high. Like when the mock draft started, that's about where he was. And nobody cared, evidently, about his shenanigans, which was disappointing because if they were willing to take the plunge, I was hoping the Vikings would take the plunge in round 4.
We talked last episode, too, about how I fell asleep when we were supposed to record right after the first round on Thursday night. Funnily enough, not even making it up, I fell asleep right before the second round started. And I slept into the late, I think it was in the late 50s, the pick. And I opened my phone and I'm like, oh my God. And I see that Mason Smith went in the second round. Yeah. And I was like, because that's somebody I'm thinking. I wrote an article on purpleptsd.com that about Mason Smith going in the 4th or 5th, maybe even 6th round, because I think that's where he was projected. But the NFL knows that he was kind of a freak before he tore his ACL by celebrating.
He had an odyssey. Let me tell you what, I accidentally found Josh Fry's mock draft for 2024, his way too early one that was published in May. And Mason Smith was a first rounder in that thing. So he must have had the almighty crummy or injury riddled 2023, because like you, I had him mocked in round 4 and 5, multiple times, because I thought Kwesi would like another LSU connect. And then he went that high, and it was toast when all those defensive tackles were going. So we are down to Calais Campbell for a big name solution. Alex Micheletti recently mentioned Linval Joseph. I guess that could be a patch over type of thing, hoping for an in-house blossom from somebody or a trade of some sort, which kind of feels like, we don't want to get any more draft capital anybody. So, trades are going to have to be minimal. Brevin, what else you got for Eric Horstman, our Kyle Rudolph lookalike?
Right, yeah.
A resident Kyle Rudolph lookalike.
I'm so glad to have him here. So now after this draft and walking out with that first round haul, you said you were kind of on the late round picks, but the late round picks are late round picks. We're going into year 3 of Kwesi and Kevin, technically. But Kwesi would seem to be the guy that had a little bit more pressure going into this draft. So do you think Kwesi earned an extension over these last 3 days, or do you think it's still a little too early for that type of talk?
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on that. I don't know. In my opinion, I don't feel like he's done as poorly as some seem to think, right? I mean, this is his first GM job. We all knew that. I don't know, why people would expect him to be like a Howie Roseman, right, type level. I get it. The first draft wasn't great with the Lewis Cine thing. That was kind of a fumble as far as the trade back and everything. So I get it. Like there are definitely some blemishes there. Oh, I don't know. I think I would probably let it ride, see how year 4 goes, to be honest. I feel like when we did trade up for McCarthy, Turner, it seemed like we did give up quite a bit. And again, if those players hit, who gives a crap? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. I'm not going to miss a 4th and 5th round pick next year, whatever it may be. But yeah, I think I'd let it ride. I would be a lot more comfortable extending O'Connell after, like right now. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Give him one, but I don't think that probably gives a good probably a good image extending him and then letting Kwesi kind of ride it out. So I if anything, I don't think they'd extend O'Connell earlier than Kwesi, unless they're going to do them together, or if they just say like, hey, Kwesi, thanks for everything, but we're going to go a different direction. Kevin, you're staying. But again, do they let a next GM pick their coach, or they say, hey, no, like you are getting Kevin O'Connell. There's nothing you can do about it. That's like the stipulation for coming here. So that's kind of where I'm at on him. Again, he's going into year 3. Give him a little bit of time. Like that seems like quite a bit of pressure for somebody that's never done it before. Like, yeah, you were starting with somebody fresh, new analytics guy. Like, give him a little bit of time, but I wouldn't extend him early.
No, for sure. And he created a rather interesting situation for himself going into next season, which it's too early to look at that because so many things can happen between now and then, as you know, in the game of football, Kyle. This first round, I think, it went better than I think anybody could have expected. And I know they gave up a lot. But with that first round came what was sacrificed, and I think he's made a really, really interesting situation for himself going into the 2025 draft, where now Minnesota only has their first round pick. Thankfully, they made all these moves and kept their first round picks. I still don't 100% look at it like that because they got to get some draft picks back. So if I'm them, I'm 100% trading down next year if they're walking into the next offseason with those draft picks still, if they don't get some kind of capital back from trades or whatnot. But I guess we got to see how he handles that whole situation because that is scaring me a little bit. But again, at the end, I think it's worth those trades were for a couple of the top players at the 2 most premium positions in football. You got your quarterback of the future. You got not the most NFL ready edge rusher, but somebody that I think when it's all said and done will be the best edge rusher of this class. So you give and you take.
Right. If the decision for some reason had to be made now or this summer, I would extend Kwesi, but I don't think I think the smartest way, and I'm guessing this is very achievable, is you got to see this season play out. And if there is fundamental optimism, like whether that's Darnold on a heater or that is JJ McCarthy looking decent down the stretch, then, you never want somebody to go on the final year of their deal in this sport. I think that's probably the most judicious, is to see how this season goes. I can't really see, hope I don't have to eat these words, any way that this season would just be garbage. Like, just absolutely the vibes are terrible. I have it envisioned like the 2014 season with the Bridgewater, where the Vikings went 7-9, but it was really fun and nobody gave a shit that it was a losing season. But I think the reason that I'm high on Kwesi is that whether he came up with a competitive rebuild as like his mantra, or the Wilf said, like, you are a competitive rebuilder. If you want this job, you're going to be it. Like, he has threaded the needle. He did what was asked of him, or he's effectuating what his in-home policy was, because he kept Cousins for the 2 years. They have the NFL's 9th best record on his watch. With grace, Cousins left. Now they've not had to trade 3 first-rounders for McCarthy. And if you let a GM go to his own devices and just say, all right, well, we're going to be shitty this year, and then I'll be able to have the pick that gets Drake May. Well, Kwesi had to combat that because they were too good at 7-10 to get Drake May. So I think if somebody told him you need to thread the needle and do a competitive rebuild, he's done wonderfully. You could do a case study on how to do a competitive rebuild, assuming that the McCarthy pick turns into him being a starter in the league that's better than Cousins. I think the almighty litmus test when somebody asked me about the quarterback, I need JJ McCarthy to be better than Dak Prescott, because in my mind, Prescott is a little bit better than Kirk Cousins. And it doesn't make sense for me to just say, well, as long as he's better than Kirk, that's okay with me. I want him to be a little bit better than the next guy in the ladder. And for me, that's Dak Prescott. That is what I would consider a successful draft pick. So that's where I'm at on Kwesi. Admittedly, I've liked him from day one. I think he's a good communicator. And the collaboration, the culture that they've restored after it got pretty callous down the stretch of the previous regime, I give him kudos for that. Are you right in the middle too, Brevin, on the extension, or would you do it now?
A little bit. And you can only hold a draft class against somebody for so long. And again, 2022 was an absolute disaster, to be honest with you. It's a first impression too, so it's going to hurt even more because of that. And then 2023, and again, drafting is not everything, but it's a large part. Like 2023, I can only give you so much good job, buddy, for drafting Jordan Addison, because that was the obvious pick. But I think when you look at everything as a whole, because there's been minor transactions that every NFL team makes. I didn't understand the trade for Rager. I didn't understand the trade for Blacklock. There's just been these little things that kind of add up in my head. But then when you zoom out and look at it all, I really like the direction we're going in. And I guess some of those minor things just are nitpicking. And you mentioned the Wilfs, and I think the Wilfs definitely don't want to lose. We all understand. They are very much we never want to be bad. We want to win. Do what you got to do. We don't want to be a bottom dweller, which I get it. I think people kind of overblow how hands-on they might be, because the Wilfs are definitely involved, but I don't think they're in Kwesi's office the entire time when he's trying to do his job. So I don't know if I'd extend him now. Of course, I don't know where the Wilfs are at on it. But if it came out tomorrow that a Kwesi extension has been done, I wouldn't freak out about it. But I don't know. It's something that would be kind of false outrage, I guess.
Yeah. What I don't understand is why Kwesi is the only general manager that we know about he can't have a bad draft. I don't understand it. If you want to go Mickey Loomis on those power rankings of GMs that come out once a year, he's always in the top 10. Well, he missed on Davenport. He missed on Peyton Turner. Nobody cares. And so I don't know why with Kwesi, we're with you, Brevin, oh, he traded for Jalen Rager. You can go find a transaction like that from every general manager.
Absolutely.
And so what I don't quite understand is how you can be having a great day and the Vikings are 13-4 going to the postseason, to getting excited about it. And then the guy at the grocery store, but what about that Lewis Scene pick? It's oh my God, why? Why would you be talking about that today? So I would always Kwesi hasn't been flawless, but you always have to judge his body of work to that of others. All right, I want to get back to Eric here. He's in the center of the show. We have now, my goodness, 4 months and change until week 1. What couple or few storylines of Vikings football are going to have you thinking about the most, whether it's chilling at home, going to bed at night? What are you going to be thinking about most for Vikings football?
Yeah, so I guess I read earlier today, I don't remember who had it on there, whether it was Ben Gessling or whatever, but that O'Connell and the staff, they've got their individual kind of development plan for each quarterback, whichever one they ended up with. So I guess the main thing for me is I'm fully expecting probably a full year of Sam Darnold. I'm just kind of gonna have to make my peace with that, I think, which is fine. We made it through Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins. We'll be all right. But I guess it's just how quickly he gets through that plan and what that really looks like. I would love to see him play, this year, whether it's
Yeah.
week 1, if he's just killing it during training camp and everything, then great. So I'd say that's probably number 1. I guess that's an easy one to,
Sure.
kind of cherry pick.
Well, it'd be weird if you didn't say it.
Yeah, I suppose so. All this talk and hype
Yeah.
about having that rookie quarterback. It's like, yeah, I want to see him on the field. Like, I want to see what he can do with JJ, and hopefully TJ is back fairly, soon into the season. But I'd say that's number 1. Probably number 2 might be the cornerback room for me.
Yeah. Oh God, it's so deep now.
It is.
It's weird.
It is. I'm trying to decide like who, I guess Andrew Booth, like, I kind of forget he's even there. Unfortunately, I was pretty excited for that pick as well. It hasn't worked out, but I don't know. Maybe Flores can work his magic there with another offseason, but I'm assuming he's the odd man out. But kind of makes me wonder about a Caleb Evans too, just since he did get, I guess, benched for a game or two last year, and then they put him back in. So yeah, that's probably my next one. Hopefully we can kick Murphy, back into, I guess, back inside. That's probably his best spot, which seems kind of weird that we're paying him all that money to be more of like your nickel corner, but for as much 11 personnel and things that are run nowadays, put him wherever he's best and pay, if he's worth the money, then pay him. But that's probably my top 2. And then at this point, I'm just, the defensive line, interior is another thing. I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say about that, but it's concerning at this point, in my opinion. And I feel like we were pretty set as far as like edge rushers go, linebackers, through free agency and everything, and obviously getting Turner and I can't remember his name, but the UCLA guy that we got as a undrafted free agent. I think that was kind of a bigger name that people were kind of excited about. But yeah, we're set.
Gabriel Murphy, is it?
Yeah. I think
Gabriel
that's
Murphy.
right.
He was the best available UDFA.
Yeah, had like 8 sacks or something last year, and I don't know. Sounds good to me. But I feel like we're set on the edge. Like, we just keep bringing in edge rushers. Like, I think we're good, guys. Like, yeah, I get having depth there, but Harrison Phillips can only do so much. And O'Connell straight up said, like, yeah, we played him way too much last year. He needs, we need more of a rotation. It's like, well, go do something about it. like, dang, guys, like you talk the talk, but like they are just, they're not. I don't know, not giving much confidence in their solution at that spot. But we'll see. I guess whatever. I could go on. I could rant forever about that, but
no, that's all right.
I should probably stop.
Why? From both of you, and we'll end the show on this note. Brevin, I want to ask you this. Andrew Booth last year, he played about 100 coverage snaps, which isn't oodles, but it's not nothing. And his PFF grade was right about 70. Why do we think this guy ain't worth shit? Is it because he isn't a starter? Like, I swear to God, when he played, I watched him and I was like, this guy's good. And is it just because he hasn't grabbed a starter's job by the throat, or do we not believe in PFF as a accurate metric? Like, I think his coverage grade was 69 something. His overall grade was 68.6 or something. And the way that we talk about him, with all due respect to Eric, is like he's just some 45.3 nitwit. Like, so why do we think that he's no good?
I think, and PFF grades only hold so much weight, kind of like you hinted to. But I agree. I agree with you for sure. Like, when you watch him play, like, he's not awful. I think some of his first NFL action was going against CeeDee Lamb, and we were like, "Uh-oh!" Like, it's CeeDee Lamb. Like, this dude's like never done anything in the NFL before. You got him lined up across from CeeDee, but and I get there. Like, there's a having Ed Donatel as your defensive coordinator. That's a throwaway year, and I just, not that it would completely stunt the development, but like, that is not how you put your corners in good situations whatsoever. So I don't know. If I had to pick like a corner to get rid of, because I think what we were talking about.
Oh, they're gonna have to get rid of a couple ones that you know and love.
Yeah, one I do not love is a Caleb Evans. Like he can. If I'm choosing between Booth and a Caleb Evans, Evans is out. I like Caleb Evans' game, like attacking at the line of scrimmage and kind of using his body as a weapon, which kind of scares me sometimes. But like that's cool. He just can't really cover whatsoever. So I'm taking Booth over Evans every single time. And I think you're going to have a heavy dose of defensive backs on your practice squad, maybe, depending on how much Brian Flores likes them. Because I do think Kyrie right off the bat is going to make the 53 and then be there with Blackman and Byron Murphy at the top three. Okay. And Shaq Griffin, of course, too. But
yeah,
I don't understand that signing.
I challenge our viewers to pull up any rendition now of the Vikings depth chart. And when you see cornerback, when you see defensive backs, you're going to be like, wowzers, a couple of them have to go because, I mean, it's a good problem to have, but none of them are absolutely elite in the cornerback room. We went from having, was it 4 or 5 startable, playable, decent cornerbacks. Now you add Jackson, you got the UDFA guy, Shaq Griffin, by the way. It's like, wow, only 2 or 3 of these guys usually play. And, depending on how slim the roster would be, it's usually like in the Zimmer era, it was 4 or 5 corners. So it's going to be, it's either Shaq Griffin doesn't stay around for very long, Brevin gets his wish on a Caleb Evans, Booth goes elsewhere. There's going to be some strange cornerback roster cuts when we get to that point. Unless we learn this summer that none of them, or unless we learn a couple of them just aren't making the cut.
And it's funny because last year we were looking at the cornerback room like, ooh,
is there
6 here we can roster?
Yeah, I remember between when Dantzler was surprisingly cut last year, and this was the version of Dantzler we still thought could be something. I remember on the show saying like at some point they're going to realize they need cornerbacks. Like folks, they're not going to just forget about it. And that was the paranoia, was we didn't have any human bodies to play at that spot. Now there's too many. Because only so many can make that spot. It would be really sweet if we had one badass, there, and then the rest could figure itself out. We're not that lucky, not quite yet. All right, Eric, will you come back in about a month and chat with us on a Saturday night?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Anytime.
You got any closing arguments for the viewers?
I don't think so. I'm pretty content at this point. Other than defensive line, but yeah, it was it was a good draft. I'm really happy with how it worked out. I again got the 2 premier players, or I guess top players at your some of your most important positions.
Oh God,
yeah. Next year will be interesting. Obviously, I mean they still have to put it all together, but yeah, I'm excited. I think they're trending in the right direction. Just hope McCarthy can, develop. And I feel like we're going to make it pretty easy on him with all the guys he has to throw to. So yeah, I'm ready to get it rolling and see how it all works. And
it's really weird that for the next 3 seasons, hopefully beyond that, the only thing that matters is whether or not McCarthy's any good.
Yep.
Because if not, we're going to get a whole new everything. We're going to be back to the rebuild type of conversations. But it's so weird, even though it's a 53-man sport, the only thing that matters about Vikings football in the next 2 to 3 seasons of whether or not McCarthy is good. So, all right, we'll talk to you in about a month, Eric. Brevin, we'll talk to you in a few days. You guys have a wonderful rest of the weekend, all right?
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.